setting out to continue our DMGeezerjim here. Just going to continue along with my classic module review series. Last couple episodes we've done I1, Dwellers of the Forbidden City, I2, Tomb of the Lizard King. So I wanted to kind of continue along in the I series from the classic first edition. If you've been following along, that you'll kind of remember that the I designator for the module series was designed for intermediate play, moderate level of difficulty, which in a lot of cases is false. Moderate level of experience was expected. I think it is what it is. The I series, while it was designed for intermediate play, actually covered a wide variety of difficulties and styles. So today I'm going to go ahead and cover I3, I4, and I5. Why are we doing all three of them? Well, because they were combined into a super module. The I series, up till this point, was designed as independent modules, single adventure, drop in, drop out, what we now call one-shots. Very rarely did they last one session. They were usually 4 or 5 sessions, but you get the idea, short adventure. So I3 was made, and it was called Pharaoh. And then I4 was made, Oasis of the White Palm. And then I5, Tomb of Martek. I genuinely believe that I3 and I4 were designed to work together, and then Tomb of Martek was kind of fit into it. But yeah, they were the first of the I series that was designed to play together in a full campaign. And it was later revisited and republished as the... let me find my good one here. My bad. Y'all are staring at freaking everything but I want. Yeah, Desert of Desolation. It was re-released. The original module was Laura Tracy Hickman. You may recognize those names from Dragonlance. This was one of their first big adventure publications for TSR, and kind of gave them the springboard to really, basically from here they went completely into Dragonlance, but neither here nor there. So it was written by good authors. There was a lot of story base put into it. Very, very, very cool storyline that goes along with it. Now, adventure level, I believe it was designed for 5th level beginning and ending at 10. It says it right here at the beginning, adventure for characters level 5 to 10. That didn't mean it was designed for level 10 to begin. Ideally, you started around 5th to 7th level. You completed the campaign book around 10 to 12, depending on how much you did and how much the Dungeon Master altered. So before we go too far into it, this is a thick book. You know, you're looking at 100 plus pages of content, 130 pages of descriptive box text, of encounters, of all of your stuff. And this actually takes your adventurers from the town of Brazilar all the way to the far end of the Desert of Desolation. Now, real quick, it was written as a campaign, so if you're going to use it as, or adapt it as written, be prepared to fit it into your world. So the first and foremost thing is, where was this designed? I believe the initial Pharaoh module was designed to be in any old desert, just a desert. It was really an Egyptian themed, get you your traditional Egyptian, the mummies and Set and the jackals and all of, just your Raiders of the Lost Ark style pillaging of an Egyptian tomb. That was the theme behind the idea, or behind the module. So according to this written book here, even though it doesn't say it anywhere, as you read through it, the Desert of Desolation is basically placed in the Forgotten Realms, in the southern areas of the Forgotten Realms, between Ravindi and Durpari. The Great Raurin, Raurin Desert. You're not gonna, if you're a 5th edition person, you're looking at me, you're probably going, I don't know what he's talking about. Unfortunately, you've been limited to about 30% of the Forgotten Realms map through Wizards of the Coast. Everything is Sword Coast. They forget that the rest of the world lives. But there's a large chunk of the desert, I guess kind of southeast of the Sword Coast, considerably farther south than Fae itself. But it's a big ass world. But anyway, so this is set there. Now the plus side is you can set this anywhere. I actually use this in Greyhawk. I stick it over in the Sea of, well, actually in the Burning Steppes north of the Sea of Dust in the Backlunish regions, kind of using the Sulhat Mountains as the starting point, having the group go north into the desolated, blasted desert lands. Fits for me there. Some people talk about using it in the Bright Desert in Greyhawk. I would recommend against that because, number one, the Bright Desert is very, very well defined already. There's a lot of cool stuff going on. Number two, it's 200 miles, 300 miles from the grand city of Greyhawk itself. It's 100 miles from Hardby. These are gigantic metroplex areas, so there's no real way that the way the module is written, the story just breaks down if you're pretty close to civilization. So keep that in mind. When you take this module, you want to go ahead and drop it into an area that is a little bit remote, that's a little bit, the farther out you can go, the better. Now, how do I get my party there? That's a MacGuffin that's built in. It's literally your group is the chosen ones drawn in magically from wherever they are. So it does give the DM a little bit more freedom to actually use whatever party members you want. Really no necessary need for a tie-in for the transit, for the meeting at the tavern and going on to the adventure. They all just fall on the floor in this wizard's study. Oh, great! My ritual has succeeded, and the saviors are here. Thank you, goodness. However you want to do it. But I mean, that's the intro to the module. It's a hard start. It's a fast start. You don't need to worry about staging it as long as your people are involved in it. So the product, I purchased this on DM's Guild. I'm a big proponent of legal distribution of products. I'm a third-party creator, small content creator, so I'm not going to go stealing other people's stuff. You build bad karma. I already had that experience of everyone giving out my first 50 or 20 or 30 maps for free because I didn't watermark them. My dumbacity for that. But yeah, pick up your stuff legally, whatever your source is, just to, help support the hobby that you purportedly enjoy. But anyway, I enjoy the PDF copy because it's accessibility. I would love to have an old copy on the shelf just to have it. I don't know that I would use it. It would sit there and I'd go, ooh, look at my old copy on the shelf. And, but anyway, so the book itself comes, as you've seen, a 128-page adventure book, rivaling anything that Wizards is putting out for 5th edition as far as content goes. And you get an additional little book, and let me zoom in a little bit. You're probably looking at these old black and whites going, ew, gross. This is the maps we had back in the day. Don't rag on them. Don't hate. You guys get these nice, cool Mike Schley artistically, either hand painted or computer generated maps. This is what we had, black and white and jiggly jagglies. But you can make them work. But in addition to the adventure book, you gain this a really large sub booklet of maps and visual aids and things for the party to have access to. I mean, you're looking at the sunken city of Pizar, the Temple of Amun-Re, a plundered tomb, a master maze, several other things. These are all actually contained within the pyramid itself. I'll get to that in a second. And you have the Oasis area. The Oasis of the White Palm is a large set piece, very role-play, politic, subterfuge-driven section of the adventure. We'll get to that in a second. And I'm going to be straight up. Y'all are going to get some spoilers here. I've tried to avoid some spoilers in some of the other ones. But you know what? I'm giving you a module review. I'm not trying to give you a preview. It's a review, which means that you got to know what's involved in it. So, the Temple of Set, the Sand Voyagers Compound, the Crypt of Badr al-Mozak, all kinds of really creepy looking dungeons and the design of the maps and all of that kind of stuff. A little primitive, but functional. And if you're decent at, if you have a mapping program, you don't even have to be decent at it. If you want to use a VTT, you'll note the simplicity of these maps. They're drawn on graph paper, so they're very, very, very easy to move over to a virtual tabletop. I think I actually have a couple of... this is a redux of the Sunken Temple at Pizar. just done in Campaign Cartographer. Drop it into the virtual tabletop, and boom, my group's good to go. This is the one of the sections of the Tomb of Amun-Re that again I made using Campaign Cartographer. Just a couple quick appearances for you, so you can. You're not tied to using. Bless you. You're not tied to using the black and whites. They're a good guideline. They're a good guide point for you to build into your own things. And anytime you're using a classic module, keep that in mind. Number one, you're going to have to do some work if you're going to play it in 5th edition to the stat blocks, to the amount of creatures, to some of the stuff. You're going to have to add difficulty challenges. Those kind of concepts didn't exist in 1st edition. So you also need to be prepared to upscale your maps. Don't have to if you're playing Theater of the Mind, which is how we played this back in the day. I was describing all of this stuff. The players didn't see the map unless we were all just getting really frustrated because I couldn't describe it. Then I put the map on the table. Oh, okay. But yeah, so you've got several dungeons. We're what, 12, 14, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 dungeons plus an entire Forbidden City, 12, 13, 14. You're looking at 14 dungeons that were presented with this module over the course of the 3 adventures. 14 plus. I mean, you're looking at the Glass Sea, the Sea of Glass. There's this place that the Great War between the Jinn Lord and Martek melted the surface of the desert into this smooth Sea of Glass that the players have to navigate across to get to the main tomb. It's kind of a cool set piece later in the game. But yeah, so you've got your adventure stuff. I'm gonna leave out my homebrew stuff. I just want to focus on the module as written. The module as written, your adventurers are tasked with going into this Desert of Desolation and freeing the land from a curse. It's very rote, very plain. I mean, what's the word am I trying to use? It's nothing special. It's not like there's this groundbreaking motivation for doing it. It's a pretty rote, pretty standard affair as far as what your group needs to do. They've been summoned by the spell of this wizard that's sitting in the town of Brazilar, who's been reading prophecies and all of this kind of stuff, and is called out. Here, let me go ahead and I'm gonna go ahead and throw up a homemade regional map for you guys. That way you can, as I'm talking through it, and we'll get to the let's scroll all the way down here. All right, this is my again, this is a homemade map. Please note, the stuff in red are things that I have, this is the DM copy of the map. The party doesn't get to see all the little stuff in red. This is just for my use. But so you can understand what the presentation was. And at the same time, if you look here, let me zoom in a little bit more. This is the actual map that was released with the game. So the party did start in the mountains called the Dust Wall, going through North Knife Pass up to the riverbed, following the ruined river over to the Tomb of Amun-Re, then following it back up to the Oasis of the White Palm, and just winding along this dried out riverbed through the Desert of Desolation, ultimately ending up here at the Glass Sea and the Tomb of Martek. So I like my map better, so we're going to show my map. But all joking aside, it's not a big deal to use modern mapping software to recreate these classics. Add a little bit more color to it. You have the freedom to add some extra encounter locations to it and all that. But yeah, you're seeing basically the same thing. Brazilar leading up to North Camp, Riverbed Post over Turbacar, Small Camp, Ravindi Camp, White Palm, Batter Alnisk. The other map you're seeing numbers. This one you're actually seeing the labels on the map. The fun stuff you could do. But anyway, party's been summoned. Once upon a time, this was a pretty fertile river valley. The Pharaoh Amun-Re lived a decent kind of, I don't want to say that. He got a little bit greedy as he got older and started building temples to himself as much as anything. Now, eventually the people get sick of his crap you're using all of our money to build all of this. You're doing, kind of what pharaohs have been wont to do over the course of history. This guy falls into the same trap: self-aggrandization, self-glorification. Every new temple must have my face on it. Everything must be bigger. So as people rise up, as thirsty and hungry people tend to do, and start doing the rah. So as they're tearing him down and throwing him off getting ready to throw him off the top of his pyramid, the pyramid of Amun-Re, his ultimate temple and tomb, he curses everybody. The desert will be dry, the river will no longer run, and everyone will rot, and so on and so forth, in all of his big grandiose terms, and until my tomb has been plundered, until my treasures have been taken, this curse will last forever. So you have a dude, a megalomaniac, who just spent his entire kingdom's resources making these impenetrable tombs and these unassailable burial plots for himself, his tomb, as it were, and curses all the people. Ha ha ha! You guys are going to die and waste away forever until you can break into the tomb that I just spent all of your money building. So nah. So this goes on for years and hundreds of years, and lots of failed attempts. And there's several cults that kind of spring up about in the desert: the Durpari and the Rovindi, excuse me. I changed the name a little bit for pronunciation's sake for my group. But anyway, so yeah. That's the initial gist, is the party has been brought into this area to break the curse. Now, the real thing is, what they don't really understand is it's a much bigger curse than just the dried out river. 1,000 years prior to this, there was a great war, and that's why I use the Greyhawk reference myself, because it doesn't fit with the Forgotten Realms lore. It is what it is. So too bad, so sad. My bad. But the two nations are in a battle. One of them uses elemental powers, begins summoning all sorts of elemental beings to raise a ruckus. And in this case, there's a greater Ifrit Pasha, basically an Ifrit Lord, who gets assigned this territory, as it were, and he runs amok, destroying everything and burning and pillaging and so on and so forth, opening up more rifts, bringing more bad guys in. So there's this great wizard named Martek, and uses some summoning to bring in a Djinn to help out a little bit. Lots of magical. Without getting into too much details, there's this big, huge battle that happens up here at Mednat Muskawoon near the Sea of Glass. And with a little bit of assistance, Martek is able to defeat the Ifrit Pasha. Now, defeat not like destroyed, but defeat as far as binding. So this is where it gets into your party screwed before they begin, because they've been told that they have to go find the 5 star gems of Martek to end the curse. And one of them is in Pazar, one of them is at the temple of Amun-Re, the pyramid of Amun-Re, and a couple more scattered around. One at the Oasis of White Plum, in the possession of the Sultan. Another one's hidden in the desert of the Temple of Set, and the last one's the crypt of Badr al-Mosque up at the City of Dead. So obviously you have a MacGuffin, a trail of MacGuffins scattered along this dried out riverbed for the party to make their way up to eventually Sea of Glass. What does all of that matter? Because when they go to Pazar, this first little bitty dungeon, right here, they stumble in there. They're the first ones to actually find the inner crypt, as adventurers get to do. And they make their way in, and as they go through a couple little spell traps and some funny little things, they get to the bottom. And they see an urn, and the star gem sitting on top of the urn. So they go to pull the star gem out, and when they do that, they release the Ifrit Pasha that has been trapped there for 1,000 years, and he runs out, ha ha ha, because you released me, I won't destroy you, but the rest of the world's about to get its ass tore up, right? So, your party's like, yeah, whatever. That's not our problem. We're trying to get these gems. They don't realize that the two are tied together. And they shouldn't realize that if you are presenting the adventure. If you're good at foreshadowing, then it should be just a kind of a one-off thing. Be very cautious not to do a ton of lore dump at that point, because well, I don't want to say because it's still the focus of the adventure early on is still getting to the pyramid and trying to break that curse there. They're not aware that all of the gems in combination are what they need to finally end the Ifrit. So they've let the Ifrit out. Ifrit's going around tearing shit up. They're following along with their mission, eventually finding a couple other stones. Why do the stones actually matter? When they find the 5th star gem, they'll be able to go to Mednat Muskawoon and the Tomb of Martek, i.e. the module I-5, Tomb of Martek. Go through this trippy, weird... Man, it's a very... Here, let me flip back over to the maps that go along with that. You have a Mobius tower. Yeah, as exactly has how it sounds. Your group can continue up and down this tower so many times if they don't do it right, where they're just constantly stuck in on themselves. They've got to go through a crystal prism. They've got a section of the city that's floating over a abyssal demi-plane. The Garden of the Curse, the Garden of Fire. Dude, the city of Mednat Muskawoon and the Tomb of Martek was a hell of a design. Lots of puzzles, lots of things to kind of work through. Lots of work for you, the DM, to prepare for. One of the downsides is most of your maps, as you're kind of seeing here, they're not scaled. They're not put out on grids. So if you're playing Theater of the Mind, you've got to be very, very aware of each of these little areas. If you're playing... And they line up right here with your Lost City, the Phoenix areas, 18, 19, so on and so forth. But you need to be prepared. It wouldn't hurt to draw an extra couple grid maps for you for battle map purposes, again, unless you're completely about Theater of Mind. So anyway, your party has made their way. Made their way over to Turbocar, the ruined city, made their way into the pyramid, solved all the puzzles, got the 2nd gem now. In doing so, they have actually reactivated the water. They if they can figure out the pyramid, if they can break the Pharaoh's curse, I3, the module is called Pharaoh. They break the curse of the Pharaoh, they free his soul, they bring life and water back to the river valley. And it's not going to be instantaneously. I mean, it's a desert. It's going to suck up most water. But eventually, in 5-10 years, this river will be flowing again. And another 15 years beyond that, the valley might become fertile. 15, 20 years. So your party has brought life back to this region. So, I mean, that's what we're wanting to do, right? When you're playing a campaign, the heroic impact of the adventurer should be felt. In this case, yay, they get to bring life, liberty, and
the
pursuit of happiness back to the desert, to the Desert of Desolation. 1 second, are you heading out?
No.
Oh, okay, my bad. My wife is kind of moving around as I do. So, the first module, I3, Pharaoh, basically is going to take the group from Brazilar through Cold Knife Pass. There's some high alpine encounters there down into North Camp. A couple little NPC interactions. They go to Pizar. They release the Ifrit. They make their way to the Pyramid of Amun-Re. They make their way through the cool little traps. Oops, wrong window there. I'm trying to find the correct map. Yeah, here we go. To see, the Sunken City of Pizar, Temple of Amun-Re, Plundered Tomb, Master Maze, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of the first 8 maps are for Pharaoh, for the I3 module. They impart finding the Sunken City, freeing the Ifrit, popping the ruby out, and then making their way into the ruined city as well as into the temple, the pyramid temple. So there's a lot for them to do in just the first module. Just a couple levels worth of stuff. They'll have some interactions with desert raiders early on. There are 2 factions, the Rarindi and the Durpari. The Durpari are your civilized folk to the north that are trying to bring civilization and trade back to the deserts, while your Ravindi are your typical dervishes. I guess you're best described. Your desert folk, your traditionalists, don't desecrate the tombs, so on and so forth. So you have these 2 cultures that are kind of clashing early on through the whole thing. And that's the second layer in Oasis of the White Palm. So let me go to that map real quick. Oops. So up to this point, your party has been dealing with mostly the Rovindi, the desert folk. They live in the town. There is a Drupari trading center there. There's a little bit of intrigue that the party can take depending on who they side with. In town can kind of change the dynamics of the interaction between the party and their two factions. If they side with the Drupari, the foreigners, the foreign devils, the grave robbers, Rovindi aren't going to be very friendly with them to begin with. Now, let me give a little of a DM tip here. The faction interactions are a significant part of your role play experience in this module. You're not playing fair. Because you only have two, you've got to have both factions basically switch positions on each other to confuse and to confuse the party, but also keep them on their toes, make them double and second and triple second guess, third guess themselves. What I mean is when they first get in to this adventure, they're the chosen ones brought to remove the curse. They get sent to over Cold Knife Pass. They get sent into Riverbed to the Bazaar to find a key to get them into the Pyramid of Amun-Re. They are breaking into tombs and stealing shit day one as part of what they're supposed to do. Their task requires them to make the Rovindi mad. They're breaking into tombs, they're stealing stuff, they're probably grabbing some loot, desecrating some bodies. Okay, it's not our fault that the mummy came at us, but you disturbed it and you killed it. So right off the bat, if the party does what they're supposed to do, the Rovindi are going to be mad at them. They're going to have angry desert dervishes chasing them across the lower half of the map to begin with. Kind of almost forced into that. So the party, as the DM, you have to make sure not to let things get too brutal to the point where there's been so much bloodshed, there's been so much hatred slung back and forth where it's irrecoverable. No matter what, these two teams are going to hate each other. The players are never going to get along with Rovindi because that makes the second part almost impossible to solve. So that's kind of what I'm saying. You got to be really careful about how you present it and how you have the party interact with the Rovindi. Rovindi don't like them. They don't like what they're doing. But the party's got to keep a little bit of restraint because, yeah, they are doing what they're supposed to be doing, but they're also disrupting the nature. So that's a balancing act for the DM to really manage. Keeping a group hostile without letting it get to outright warfare. Giving them something to salvage. Make sure the players leave themselves some space to walk back from situations. Don't baby them, but understand that bad role play is going to force you into handing them something so the adventure can continue, or it's going to put them in a situation where they cannot continue successfully. It is what it is. That's one of the flaws with your older module designs. Some stuff was very binary. Failure was an expectation back in the day. You know, I mean, hell, I'm going a little off topic, but, you know, we're going to talk Tomb of Horrors here. Okay, oops. Sorry, let me get back to my other screen. On Tomb of Horrors, I mean, the idea is that your party's played it 9 or 10 times before they finally beat it. They've used a stack of characters and gotten their asses killed multiple times till they finally figure it out. Most of your modules were designed for that. 5th edition is fourth, I'd say 4th and 5th, mainly 5th. The power to the people. It is what it is. It's okay. This has been the big, I think, the single largest shift in focus to collaborative storytelling, to campaigning, to playing the game through completion. It's just not a series of adventures that we play on, and if we survive, great, and if not, it's okay, we'll do something else later. The intent and the expectation for a 5th edition player when they sit down at your table, level 1, they're planning on being the person that sinks the sword into Tiamat at the end. They're the ones who are going to lop off one of Demogorgon's other heads. In this adventure, they're going to be the ones that place the final gem on top of Martek's statue to bring it all back to life. They know day one because it's been beaten into their head through social media, through online campaign viewing, through whatever. The expectation now is that the party it's not a bad expectation. I'm don't misunderstand me. I'm not trying to say, oh, it's easy mode. No, you get to build something long term. It's a cool thing. But you have to adjust how you prepare classic content for 5th edition. First edition, it was ones and zeros. It was binary. You succeed, you fail. You roll that die on a death save. If you failed, you're dead. You're gone. Pull out another character sheet, start over. It was a very binary environment. So the modules were not written with lateral space for players to make a lot of mistakes, to screw around, to if they do this and this and this and this, that's okay. They can still go over here and talk to this guy and do that. That wasn't a thing back in the day. If your party pisses off all the Rovindi, goes to war with them, raids all of their temples, finds every extra place they can, and ends up making it to the Oasis of White Palm with a caravan with all of the gold that they ever found, game over. Game over. Because who they need to deal with to get the next key to go forward will frickin' attack them on sight. And the players, being who they are going to go to war. DMing the way you're supposed to DM, the Drupari are going to jump in, help kill the Rovindi, and guess what? The adventure ended there. So that's the kind of things that you have to massage as a dungeon master when you're using older content. There's not a lot of gimmies. There's not a lot of reset buttons. There's not a lot of in case your players are murder hobos, you can do this. In case they killed this person, you can do that. No, if it happens in this, it happens. So keep that prepared. So anyway, they've made the Rovindi mad. They've succeeded. They found 2 star gems, one in Amun-Re, one in Pizarre. They make their way up along the river, encountering all kinds of fun stuff along the way, to the Oasis of the White Palm. Oasis of the White Palm is a very roleplay heavy section of it. You're actually trying to negotiate a peace, if you will, between the Rovindi and the Drupari. So yes, the people that your party just ended up making angry for the first 20% of the adventure, the party now has to make nice with. And then in addition to that, the party has to make peace with the Rovindi and the Drupari while they're there to maximize the likelihood that they'll find the MacGuffin. The Oasis of the White Palm is not just a clever name. If they do not do something right with certain people, they cannot advance. This entire section is roleplay driven. Now, the downside of that is this can end really quickly if you're not good at roleplay or if your party figures it out. But the plus side is you're sitting at one of the only oases in all of this stretch of the desert. The amount of latitude that you have to add things in, to play with things, to put some extra stuff in there is huge here. So let me switch back over to the, oops, wrong screen. I'll figure that out eventually. So Oasis of White Palm. This is your exterior map of the Oasis area. You've got big old statues, the Oasis itself. The White Palm is a sacred tree. 2 different camps, the Drupari, or excuse me, the Sand Voyagers compound, the Drupari guild, as it were, your trades guild people, and then you have the Nomad camp, which is where your Rovindis hang out. So you've got 2 separate factions that are living within the sacred confines of the Oasis, navigating these 2. I mean, and there's assassination attempts that can go on. There's some submissions. If you need, if your group is okay with the Rovindi, or if they're doing poorly, there's a series of small little, we'll call them video game faction missions that they can do to improve their standing with the Rovindi. Now, I'm going to put one giant caveat here. I had said that if your party had done nothing but gone to war with the Rovindi the entire time, they were in a bad spot when they got here. That is absolutely true. If there are 3 ways to find the MacGuffin here. Number 1, kissing that Rovindi butt, making friends with the sheik, the sultan, the emir of the camp, having all the nomads like you, and then going through the dialogue to find it there. Number 2, if they had made the Rovindi mad and they've been hanging out with the Drupari, they can hang out in the Sand Voyager compound and provided that they are willing to do a lot more nasty stuff in favor of the Sand Voyagers, which will make their life harder later with all the Dupari, the Ravendi, excuse me. They can use the Dupari's assets to find what they need to get the next step. Or 3, if they go completely murder hobo, kill everything and everybody, and examine every single body, they might find what they need. That's it. I mean, that's it as written. As a DM, you have the latitude, you have the creativity, you have the flexibility to add a few more things in. That's probably the only downside with this campaign. It is very dependent on the party finding certain items in certain places to advance the story. And honestly, that's the only, in my opinion, the only real weakness with this campaign. It is a string of MacGuffins. It is a string of, you're finding the Star Gems of Martek. There's 5 of them hidden along the path that leads them to the Tomb of Martek. As long as they find them when they get to the tomb, all kinds of cool stuff's going to happen. If they don't, then they don't. So, the adventure itself, the design, the campaign, isn't the most difficult. It isn't the most groundbreaking. It isn't the most, oh my god, wow, that's cool. The application of all of it is what makes it fun. The adventuring side of it. For example, the Pyramid of Amun-Re has got, let me find it real quick. I'll pull the map up. Corridan's Master Maze. Now, this is going to take you some work to make functional in 5th edition, mainly because it works on the old premise was there's a magical gas that permeates the air, causing a high level of disorientation to those that are, to those that are navigating through the maze. It's not a hard maze, but with the way the walls are curved, vision is obscured, and the gas effects, it was difficult back in the day for players to navigate. 5th edition, I had to change the entire map up. I had to change everything up because, well, I've got a racial immunity to this. Well, I've got a class immunity to that. Well, I've got this item that does this. So, Corridan's Master Maze, as written, will not work for 5th edition. It will be completely too easy for the party to go through. Plan on rebuilding the maze or changing it up magically to make it the difficulty it's supposed to be. So what I did, I took the maze as it was written, and I basically shrunk the party. As soon as they walked into the portals, everyone was shrunk to, I guess, what was it, a 10-foot square, a 1/100th of their size. So a 10-foot by 10-foot hallway suddenly became 100-foot by 100-foot. It became impossible for them to navigate through normal means, simply by me shifting their size around. When they went into, and here's the thing, number one, everyone's like, that's kind of shitty, that's cheesy. Well, it only affected them in the hallways. So whenever they were in these strange curved hallways full of the mist, all they saw was just this wide open plain of mist. They could follow the wall around, which is the only really way they could navigate. But the way the walls are curved, if you're a large person, you can feel the curve, when you're turning. If you're itty-bitty tiny, you can't ever detect the curve. So every hall, no matter where they went, seemed to go straight until it entered a room. And in the room, they would come back to their full size. It would be a 30-foot by 30-foot puzzle room of some sort or an encounter of some sort. They'd have to figure out which door to go through, which archway to go through, and then they'd be shrunken again. So that's the method I used to make the Master Maze considerably more difficult than it would be otherwise. Prepare accordingly. This is not a knock on 5th edition. This is me telling you how to take 1st edition stuff to make it useful for 5th edition. Inherent abilities, inherent class, species abilities, class abilities, itemization and spells by level 5 are going to absolutely negate the difficulty of this maze. It wasn't built for 5th edition, it was built for 1st edition. So if you want to use Corridan's Master Maze, you need to refigure it a little bit, maybe completely rebuild it from the ground up, or you can just throw it out. Nothing says you have to have it in there. It was a cool part of the pyramid, but it's not a necessity. If you're reading through it, as you look through it, and you find that this is just going to be way more trouble than it's going to be worth, you know what? Shh, rip it out, chunk it out. Party dinner after see it. You know, so. But yeah, so that's kind of the one of the little things that's in the pyramid. You have the Plundered Tomb here. Let me zoom in on this. When your party first goes through, they'll go through the ruined city of Turbakar, and I just drew a bunch of ruins on the map, had them fighting desert undead, all that kind of stuff, assisting some of the Rovindi to get some faction. They go up the Temple of Amun-Re, which is where the water spills out. This is at the base of the pyramid. They go through here. They deal with a couple encounters and some dervishes, and that leads them here to the Plundered Tomb. Now, the Plundered Tomb is, for intent and purposes, supposed to appear as the Tomb of Amun-Re. When the party gets there, just so you know, this is bad art. This is them putting everything on one page. This should be on its own. Doesn't matter. We're just worried about the Plundered Tomb. So they come in. There's a few secret doors that they have to find. Again, how you handle secret doors as a DM is going to have a huge impact on the difficulty of this dungeon. If you're a stodgy bastard and you make them roll, and they're looking for a door, I'm looking for this wall, roll. Well, I don't care. We'll roll. I rolled 11. You don't find it. You roll. I rolled a 12. You didn't find it. You roll. If you're a roll-based DM and they don't roll well enough, adventure just ended right there. Encourage them to explore. Give yourself the flexibility to make sure that you're able to resolve 5th edition conditions to satisfy a 1st edition module. They have to find the secret doors to move. Does that mean you give it to them? That's up to you. I mean, if your party's kind of along for the ride, if they're casuals, if they don't pay a ton of attention to stuff, make the DC 10, and I'm sure someone will roll it and they'll find the doors. If your party's very detail-oriented, enjoys the roleplay, enjoys the problem-solving, verbalization, don't even use rolls, man. Make them search for it. Where are you looking? Let's look at the statue. Okay, you notice that the statue's got some scrape marks along the ground. Looks to where it slides to the left. Ooh, cool. Give them the cues, the verbal cues in their where they can visualize it as they're describing their actions to you. So it fits either. I mean, this is a stylistic thing. It's not a mandate for either thing. But understand that this section is dependent on secret doors being found. Now, what's funny is they'll find the secret door, they'll get back into here, and they'll find the cisterns. And these are like eternal flowing water things that this is where the river comes from this temple, magically induced. The water is produced here, flows out into the river, feeds the rest of the valley. But for whatever reason, the water's trapped right now. They'll look in there, they'll go, okay, cool, whatever. Maybe you'll have a goober that'll jump in, which is actually the smart thing they can do here. But odds are they won't. So they'll go further in, they'll find another secret door behind a statue, and they'll go into another tomb, and they'll find another secret door behind another statue, and oh, this is it. They'll get to the end of it, and they'll find an empty sarcophagi. And you have the obligation to make sure that they genuinely believe that they found the abandoned ruins of Homeboy, okay? The truth is they have to go through one of these water tunnels, either fall down or swim up, and that actually leads them to the maze, okay? They swim through to the 7. That actually leads them to where's my room 1. Actually, they'll come up here at 28. They'll come up 28, work through all of this because they came up through the water. There's a bunch of different things that can get stuck in here. There's a bunch of illusionary traps in the maze. There's a bunch of actual physical spear traps, pit traps, charm traps, all kinds of cool crap in there. So, just this pyramid, you've dealt with a bunch of secret doors, you've got some traps, you've got some pits, you've got some magical effects, you've got all that kind of stuff. And then you get to the upper level, the gauntlet area, the Tomb of Amun-Re, the halls of the upper priesthood, and this is gravity puzzles in some of these rooms. I don't want to get into a ton of detail. I could spend a full hour detailing map 8-5 and all the funky, cool little tricks that go into here. Suffice to say, there's a bunch. There's some really neat trap effects that happen here. Some magical effects, some stuff that the party's just going to have a really hard time figuring out. Most of your doors are concealed. Most of your doors are hidden. To move around at all, they're going to have to be pretty smart. They're going to have to be pretty savvy. So yeah, the exploratory parts of the Tomb of Amun-Re are really cool, but they have to be managed. As written, first edition, a lot of stuff is save versus die, save versus turn to stone, save versus paralysis. Adjust accordingly. Let's rewind a second. Let me go back to the actual adventure guide here. My apologies as I switch screens. One of the things that's been I don't want to even say challenge. One of the things to keep in mind is your monster stat blocks between your editions are different. I almost said Tomb of Annihilation. The Desert of Desolation isn't that bad. We'll just look at the North Knife random encounters. Bugbears, a bugbear in 1E is a bugbear in 5E. Wolves, a bunch of wolves. The thing you might notice is the number of them. Random encounter could be 1 to 8 bugbears, 2 to 12 wolves, 1 to 3 Yeti, abominable small man, those exist. Travelers, commoners, giant mountain goats, you might have to homebrew that ever so slightly. Wargs, hill giant, mountain lion, grizzly, mounted bandits. Every single one of those creatures exists in 5th edition. You should not have to do a whole lot of you should not have to do a whole lot of shifting of monsters. You shouldn't have to do a whole lot of home brewing. Now, I have in the past given some formulas. If you're just wanting to use the book as is, you use this math and you can use the stat block as listed. Well, just for craps, just from grins, we'll go ahead and do that real quick. Let me pull in. Now, I'm going to be straight up. A Dervish Scout as a 4th level fighter would be equivalent to a veteran. Okay? AC 6. 20 minus 6 is a 14. So the Dervish Scout is going to have an AC of 14. He's a human. He's going to have a movement of 30. Fighter 4 means I'm using 4d10 for his hit dice. He's going to have proficiency of a +2 on their +4 on their 2 hit, and +2 to their damage. He gets 1 attack as a veteran. 1d8 +2 to their damage. Strength bonus +1 to hit, +2 to... So, all you need to care about to use this stat block is the armor class, the movement, the hit dice, and the attack. Okay? Hit dice is hit points. So, he's going to be an armor class 14 guy with 30 foot of movement. He's going to probably have about 30 hit points with 1 attack, +4 to hit. He's going to do 1d8 +4 on his damage. Okay? Boom. Done. Or you could just go pull a veteran stat block in and drop it in. So it's up to you. There are some monster or some of the classic adventures that in and of themselves give you miniature monster manuals. Have 5, 6, 7, 12 new monsters to deal with. I say new. That's in context of 1987. They were new for us back then. Nowadays, well, let's be honest, they might still be new. I think 5th edition represents about 30% of the monsters that have been produced from BECME to 4th edition. So there's still a huge library of creatures and critters and guys and girls and gods and all of that nasty stuff. There's a huge library of stuff that our players have never encountered and we need to do. So, I mean, you might notice as you're looking around, you got desert monsters. You got a purple worm. Now, a purple worm going to pop up out the desert and probably end a 5th level group. That was part of D&D back in the day. If you want to drop one now, that's up to you. Keep it manageable. Okay, so we've gone through a little bit of the stat blocks. I've gotten you through a couple of the first 2 steps of the module. Tomb of Amun-Re, White Plume Mountain. I'm going to rewind a second here. One of the single biggest challenges with this adventure is really hard to incorporate for 5th edition. Okay? 5th edition does a absolutely horrible job of providing structure for survival stuff. There's a lot of optional rules that are given in the DM's guide. There's a lot of things that you can figure out. But the reality is there's not a whole lot of punishment. There's not a whole lot of structure given in 5e to ensure survival. I mean, we're going to take this as simple as arrows. How many DMs track ammunition use for a party? I'm running 4 campaigns. No. Greyhawk, Avernus, Waterdeep, Sigil. Greyhawk, Avernus, Waterdeep, Sigil. Yeah, I'm just running the 4. Yay. I used to be way more. But Avernus, I track ammunition. They're in frickin' hell. They can't go to the corner store and pick up more food, more ammo, more water. Waterdeep, I don't care about ammunition. They're passing 11 Bowyers and Fletchers walking from the northward to the southward. They can grab a handful of arrows at any point in time. Greyhawk, they're close enough to the city. I don't care about it. When they get away from normal supply lines, they need to loot it. So the rules of structure for monitoring logistics, it's a pain in the butt to deal with in 5th edition. For monitoring heat exhaustion, it's a pain in the butt to deal with. But those are the huge factors, constant factors that come into play for Desert of Desolation to really put the party into the theme of the adventure, into feeling like they're actually there. You've got to apply heat. If the fools are walking around in plate mail armor, they're going to have exhaustion. They're going to have heat damage. So what do you do about that? Well, I'm just not going to wear my plate mail. Okay, then you better make sure that you're paying attention to the Doff and Dawn rule. You see a dust cloud as 6 desert riders cross the sands at you. Well, I guess I'll put my plate mail armor. It's going to take you 10 minutes to do that. They're going to be on top of you. Pay attention to that kind of stuff. Be prepared for your players to circumvent all of that crap with 5th edition species and rules. Well, I'll just be an artificer. That way I can just use an action to make my armor disappear and reappear. And that's fine. That's fine. Understand that one of the big challenges of this module is the survival aspect of it, is being out under that desert sun for the 14th day in a row, getting beat down and losing your water and having the heat and having a camel get sucked into a sinkhole that happened to have half of your gear on it. Those are the things that should exist to make this module a challenge. Those are things that were very, very, honestly, you see me kind of, here, let me switch over, you don't see me. But I'm scrolling through this first couple, judging notes for the referee. The entire chapter 2 is devoted to maintaining mounted travel, reactions of mounts according to different things that happen in the desert. A sandstorm, what's going to happen? A sinkhole, what's going to happen? A desert monster attack, what's going to happen? Different parts of terrain, what's going to happen? Fatigue, food deprivation, overexertion. All of this stuff is is the first part of the module is 8 pages of survival notes. And this was written for 1st edition when survival was kind of part and parcel. If you didn't bring food, you drown, you starved to death. We used to check iron rations, we used to check water, we used to check ammo. All that was a standard. So on top of what was accepted in 1st edition, the authors of the module then give you another 8 pages of stuff to enforce. This is where you are going to have a hard time as a 5th edition Dungeon Master, as 5th edition adaptation. You're going to have to homebrew a lot, or let me rephrase that. You can completely throw out the survival aspect of it. You really can. You can just play and have fun, and it's a big ass beach. You're doing yourself and your party a disservice if you do that, in my opinion. You have this entire civilization of people that are out here scrabbling and struggling to set up water traps and to do this, that, and the other. And then meanwhile, your party just falls in and, summon water. Oh, let me drop Mordenkainen's mansion and we'll just have a nice night with our phantasmal spirits giving us fucking sponge baths and fanning us with peacock feathers. Come on, y'all. That's up to you. I would say be cautious about what you allow into it. I would say work with your group on it, man. If your group wants to have a cool, fun Indiana Jones style adventure dealing with desert dangers and all that, and they don't want to be hardcore about it, throw away your survival sections. It's not going to be a big deal. If your group wants a challenge, hold them to it. Pay attention to marching order. Pay attention to terrain effects. Make sure that things are, that when bad things happen, you're in the desert. It's super hot during the day, but it's super cold at night. Do you have wood? Where do you have wood from? Because we hadn't seen a tree in about 64 miles. What are you using for a fire now? Oh, you don't have a fire? Guess what? Everyone gets some exhaustion for cold. Oh, now you're hot the next day. You didn't take your armor off because you went. Guess what? You get an exhaustion for heat. Does anyone have water? Have you been checking your water? No. No one bought water. Those are the fun things / tedious things. It depends on you. It depends on your group. So, yeah, I wanted to digress for, I wanted to focus on that for a second. The environmental stuff is huge. Hell, in the beginning section of it, when you're going through Cold Knife Pass, your party will get hypothermia at 14,000 feet if they're not prepared for it. If they didn't buy some warm weather clothing, if they're not doing things to prepare for it, they will have hypothermia before they get to the desert. They can freeze to death, take ice damage, take cold damage, and they get over the desert, and it's all reversed. So be prepared for that. Survival aspects being, if you emphasize the survival aspects, that also gives you a greater opportunity to work within the role play. The party now needs the Rovindi. They need the Derpari to survive. They need to be able to find this kind of stuff. Because again, we rewind back to the very beginning. The group of adventurers, they were the chosen ones. One has been teleported in from Eberron. One has been teleported in from Kryn. Well, we can't say Eberron because Eberron doesn't connect to the rest of the worlds. Look it up. That's not my rule. That's stupid Eberron's rule. But yeah, 2 of them Forgotten Realms. One of them's from Greyhawk. One of them's from Mystar. One of them's from Kryn. The people they're allowed to play in the rest of the multiverse. They get sucked into here. They don't know what to expect. They don't even know where they are, much less their characters shouldn't know they're about to cross this gigantic desert or go 14,000 foot of alpine mountain climbing on their way there. So they're coming into this very unprepared. So the onus is on us as dungeon masters to really hammer home the environmental dangers. It shouldn't be something that's so overbearing that on session 52 we're still bitching at them about arrows and drink and all that. By session 15 or 20, they should have gotten into their daily routines. We're going to dig for water when we get up. We're going to do this. We're going to do that, and so we're not always constantly beating them over the head with logistics. More to the point, making sure that at some point they establish good best practices for survival in the desert. That's my personal goal. I don't want to tie up an hour out of every 3-hour session playing logistics, but I do want them acknowledging that the environment is hazardous and we are spending some of our resources and some of our efforts to circumvent those hazards or to make them to mitigate the hazards. So that's kind of your goal. Now, so we've gone Pyramid of Amun-Re, which was module I3 Pharaoh. The party's gone through, found a couple star gems, reactivated the water fountain. The river will be flowing soon, and within a decade, they'll be hailed as the bringers of life if they survive. They've gotten to the Oasis of White Palm, the Oasis of the White Palm. Here they're getting deeply embroiled in the Rovindi versus Dupari cross-factional thing. They're finding out about a couple other cults, some dead cults, Cult of the Set, things like that are kicking around here. And they can potentially find the key to the next 3 gems. Find one here and the key to the next 2 once they survive. Once they solve the challenges here at Oasis of the White Palm. Now again, on my map, I have put some custom stuff in here because I like having extra stuff for the party to do. They tend to go off track, so if you build for it, you have things to direct them towards. Feel free to add and subtract as much as you want. Like I said, the Oasis, the White Palm, the module itself is describing the Oasis, a little bit of their journey. Pharaoh's going to take them, module I3 will take them from Brazolar to the Pyramid of Amun-Re and back down the river. Oasis of the White Palm kind of fills in a little bit of the journey up to the Oasis and the area around that. Tomb of Martek picks up from basically Badr al-Mozak to the end of the module, to the end of the adventure. Okay? So this is the role play section. This is the diplomacy section. This is the persuasion section. This is the intimidation section of the game. This is the interviewing. This is the role play. The enemies that they've made along the way will come back to haunt them here. The friends that they've made along the way will come back to help them here. And depending on what situation they leave the factions in when they leave White Palm, they could very well be hacking and slashing all the way to the rest of their thing if they pissed off everybody. The Depari are going to come after them. The Rovindia are going to come after them. The Cultists are going to come after them. Everything's going to come after the party if they handle it wrong. Or they're going to have a decent amount of assistance, some safe places, and some help as they navigate this last part of the adventure. DMs, man, if you're not into RP, if you're not into heavy dialogue, if you're not into managing a bunch of factions, you might want to shortcut your trip in Oasis of the White Palm. Just simply figure out who the MacGuffin is, and it is a who, and hand it to them. Okay? Because if your party's not good at RP, or if you're not good at RP, this is going to be a wasted segment of the adventure. If you're not good at formulating plot over plot over plot, lying to your group, misleading them, playing dialogue games, then the Oasis of the White Palm section does fall flat. If you enjoy that, then this can be one of the most entertaining parts of the adventure, to the extent that you can even use the Oasis and non-player characters to plant more information and more stuff to move the adventure forward. Pharaoh is required. You have to do that to get the gems, to free the Ifrit, to get the gems to let the river run free. A stop at the Oasis, the White Palm, is required. Full participation in it is not. I think you're missing a large, probably one of the more entertaining parts of the adventure. But again, I stress, if you're challenged running RP, if your party is not into role play, if you're challenged playing off factions against each other, if you don't want to sit there and argue with yourself as 4 different people as a DM, which is at one point can happen, might ought to spend a little bit of time tearing apart the Oasis, pulling the part that you needed, the things that you need out of it, and handing it to your players. So, that's not criticism, that's just objective reasoning. 5th edition can turn role play into a huge thing, or it can devolve it into 3 die rolls. Give me a perception. Give me intimidation. Give me an insight to see if you can tell he's lying. Okay, you win. So it is what it is, man. 5th edition can take, depending on where you lie, if you're a die-heavy DM, everything comes down to a die roll. Oasis of the White Palm is going to last 11 minutes. If you're into building and role-playing and all of that, Oasis of the White Palm can take up several sections of fun stuff. So we've gone from Oasis of the White Palm. We've discovered the Temple of Set. We found the extra couple of MacGuffins here. Learned that you have to go to the fallen city of Badr al-Mazak to get the next thing. Make your way to the City of Dead to find another thing. Cross the Sea of Glass to get to Medinat Muskawoon and the Temple or the Tomb of Martek. That's the closeout. At this point, you are working on trying to... By now, your group should be aware that they have these gems, and the gems are the only hope of saving the Desert of Desolation from the machinations and the destruction of the Ifrit Lord that they released back in Pharaoh. So this whole time they've been doing this, is Ifrit's going around, destroying everything, opening up elemental rifts, recruiting bad guys, So that's the big bad. This is definitely a situation where the party, whether they realize it or not, has let the big bad go. They opened up the jar, they let the genie out of the jar, and the genie's out there raising hell. In this case, it's an Ifrit, not a djinn, but you get my drift. Now, what's really interesting is this is DM telling plot story here. Spoiler. This has all been laid out by Martek himself. When Martek battled the Ifrit, Calamuth... Oh gosh, his name is hard to say. It's in here though. Let me find it. Calatharius. Calatharius is the Ifrit Pasha. that got bound by Martek. So Martek was not strong enough at that time when they first fought to destroy the Ifrit. Even with all the aid he had, everything he had, the best he could do was bind him. And he knew no matter what, eventually the Ifrit, through hook or crook, was going to get free. Whether the binding spell wore off, whether someone accidentally tripped it. So he set up this intricate thing. I'm just going to read it out here, okay? Martek gave 5 star gems to the rulers of the lands crossed by the river Athis, 1 to each. The star of Mopalar, a fist-sized opal, he gave to the pharaoh Amun-Re, who locked it in his theft-proof tomb. The star of Agapalar, a huge sapphire of midnight black with a star of the purest white, he gave to the lord of Prazar in return for keeping Calitharius prisoner. The star of Shah-Palar, a very large faceted ruby, he gave to a pharaoh whose name is lost in antiquity. The gem was stolen by the evil Badar al-Mazak and is said to be buried with him. The star of Khan-Palar, an enormous clear crystal, is thought to be buried near the white palm. The star of Melos-Palar, a faceted amethyst ball, was taken into the cursed city of stone, never to be seen again. All 5 are needed to locate Martek's tomb. Legend says that Martek's sphere of power was buried with him. Using that wondrous tool, Martek bested the evil Ifrit Pasha Calitharius in a magical battle that has not been seen since. The very desert sands flowed like water before the Ifrit was imprisoned. The truth is that Martek's knowledge and wisdom are his sphere of power. They lie with him within the citadel, and when he is brought back to life, he will use them to banish the Ifrit forever. So, rewinding a bit, 1,000 years ago, for whatever your story, whatever your world setting is, this Ifrit Lord and his bad guys were released and were tearing the area up. The great mage Martek faced off and squared off against Calitharius and was able to bind him for a time. Knowing that Calitharius was going to get free, Martek placed himself, his soul, his knowledge, and wisdom into the sphere of power. No one knows that. Everyone assumes it's just a magical artifact. No one understands that that's actually Martek put in hibernation mode. So basically the party's going through all of this to get these gems, to find the tomb of Martek, to take the gems, and to find the sphere of power, which in doing so releases Martek. And Martek's able to finally end the Ifrit once and for all with the party's help. So, I mean, that's the gist of the adventure. Kind of simplified, but still pretty fun. So knowing this in advance, you've got to be able to stage out this adventure to where the party's getting these gems. They're not really sure why initially, but then they kind of have an idea what they're doing with the gems as they go forward from there. And each time they get a gem, they should be a little bit more aware of what's going on. But until the end of it, they shouldn't be aware that they themselves are freeing Martek. Here's a fun thing. We're looking at it. Remember, I1, Dwellers of the Forbidden City, had 0 descriptive box text. I2, Tomb of Lizard King, introduced some. And here we have I3 giving us basically 2.5 pages of single-spaced, triple-column box text. So, yes, this was designed for me, the DM, to read to the players for about, I don't know, depending on how quickly you read, it would probably take 8 to 10 minutes to read all of this to them. But this is the setup for the adventure. From the moment they have arrived to everyone being told what you're here, know ye by order of excellently Alam Pasha Barak, Hetman of Brazilar, trustee of Drapar, whereas it hath been reported late to us a certain dark and vile, blah, 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 blah. This huge verbiage designed to get the party and stick them in and make them feel bound to this without any other choice. So yeah, they're going to start out in the city of Bralazar, excuse me. They have the opportunity to do a little bit of shopping, interact with some people. There's a list of NPCs that is given at the beginning, the major non-player characters. They have a little bit to do. Most of it is Bralazar. A couple of them actually pop up at Oasis of the White Palm. make their way across Cold Knife Pass, elevation 9,000 to 12,000 feet. When they get up there, get cold and get rocky. You get in the desert, then they get hot and dusty. You got sinkholes, you got shifting sands, you've got sandstorms, you've got static lightning stuff, all of this kind of crap that's been getting thrown at the party. Then they make their journeys, Sunken City, Bazaar, all that. So we're just kind of scrolling through the book. Now, one thing I do want to share, and this is kind of a cool thing. The original book came with a lot of cool visual aids, and we're gonna let me scroll out a little bit. Obviously, this has been a book, most of it for the DM, but it came with some cool stuff to give to the party. Namely, this orangey looking stuff here. I think I have a better view of it over here. Give me a second. Maybe. Give me a second. Yes. As we're clicking on this, these three maps. This one is Turbocar and the. Oops. Let me go back through it the other way. So the module comes with handouts, player maps that you can give to them. That kind of show it's not to scale. It's close enough to where people can follow it. But they have all this strange little alphabet stuff on there. Now, in addition to, oh look, the white palm, the key to read the white palm. That's what I'm talking about. The who. There is a specific person that the party has to be able to talk to in such a way as where they can read the palm and orient the palm with an amulet that they have to find from someone else to figure out where the next thing is. Oasis, the white palm is a double entendre. Number one, we're talking about the girl's palm. Number two, we're talking about the gigantic white palm tree that lives at the Oasis. Kind of neat. But you have this document here. You're looking at all these strange hieroglyphics. All of these things on the right. As a DM, I've copy-pasted them, cut them out, presented them. Because they'll come across certain sections in the ruins where they'll have these inscriptions. They'll have an obelisk sitting in the desert that is covered in with these inscriptions. So, in addition to all of these funky little writings, there's a key, a language key that was given out that's available with it. If your group's into codes, if your group's into playing with translations, it's fun. And if your translator has any sort of skill or talent, they'll be able to read the words without the key in a matter of 5 or 6 translations. It's not the hardest thing to do, but it is kind of a fun little immersive thing. Most of your translations are content, their context, their flavor. Some of them are, do not go down this way, this is the wrong way. And straight up, we'll tell the party, wrong door, don't go here. If they know how to translate it, it saves them some time. If they don't, it's all for fun and games later. But yeah, there's a large collection of text for the party to come across. Some of it helpful, most of it helpful, some of it very helpful, some of it's just content. But more than that, this gives you, the dungeon master, if you can get used to writing in this script, a whole new thing that you can add, a whole literary, if you will, environment to add to the game, using an ancient language script. So it's a pretty fun thing. Yeah, the module, the original adventure book came with a lot of handouts, big old posters thing. You can see little dotted lines. You're supposed to cut it out and give it to your party at specific points to allow them to make progress through the adventure. So, that still exists. You just produce it digitally, or if you're playing live, cut that shit out and hand it to them. So, yeah, it is a MacGuffin-heavy module in the extent that this is kind of can I rotate that? Let me rotate. Oh, let me go one more time here. And I'm going to slide over and zoom. Kind of the maps we were looking at earlier for the Tomb of Amun-Re. This actually shows you how everything lines up in a 3-dimensional point of view. So they came through the Plundered Tomb, assuming they found the secret door. They made it down here. They found the other secret door, and they made it down to the abandoned crypt. Remember saying the only way in was to go in the water thing? Guess what? They go in the water thing. They make their way up. They came up through here. They go through the maze. They might find their way through the maze up to the next level. But then they follow it up to the priest lair. And there's some gravity puzzles and all of that that eventually lead up to the final tomb. So each of those layers is built into the pyramid. That's just kind of another view to help you out. Yeah, see, right here. Here's your cross section of the pyramid. So, yeah, that just hopefully another visualization to help you picture how well and how well they put this pyramid together, the original design. It follows kind of your historical cross view of a pyramid. If you're into History Channel, if you want to look at what the interior of a pyramid looks like, kind of. I mean, obviously we put some fantasy spins on it, but yeah, they did a good job. The Hickmans did a good job of reproducing a pyramid-style adventure for Dungeons & Dragons, including your hieroglyphics, your traps, your false tombs, all of that exists there. And then the later parts of it, the Oasis, the White Palm, and the Tomb of Martek really blow it up, turn it into a D&D style adventure. So, yeah, that's enough of that. You've got all kinds of cool little things here. There's light web puzzles. There's ever-falling pits. You've got some good little visual art for your party. If you know, honestly, any pictures of deserts will work well. Mazes, different mazes. You step on a square in the maze, you get teleported to a different section of a different maze, but you don't really realize it because it happens so quickly. It's full of cheesy tricks, scary traps, hard puzzles, sailing across a sea of glass in the middle of the night with a purple worm bursting through it to eat you in the middle of the... Cool stuff like that, man, when you get up to Mednat and Muscaroon. Riddles, you gotta be able to answer riddles on an obelisk for the obelisk to turn and open and allow you in. Temple of Prometheus, you've got to kind of understand the whole idea of the Titan Prometheus and the story of fire and how that plays in to answer some questions to get through the next area. It's really cool. I mean, it's a fun adventure. I have tried to run it. Unfortunately, we ended up having to stop about a third of the way through it. But, you know, just time is what it is. I believe my party enjoyed it. But, you know, sometimes it happens. This is probably, if I'm going to estimate it, playing weekly, if you're very efficient and follow everything, don't add a bunch of cool stuff, which is what I did. I added some extra layers, made the desert a living world. But if you can avoid doing all of that and just kind of focus on the trip, you're probably looking at, I don't know. Man, that's so tough to say. Different groups do different paces. You know, hell, I've got like I said, I've got 4 different campaigns. My Avernus group is so task oriented. You know, they're probably at about 30% part, and they're doing something every single day. My Waterdeep group has been playing Waterdeep Dragon Heist for 4 months now, and they just now started the heist. That's not a criticism of anything other than just understanding as a dungeon master, different groups are going to run at different paces. So with that being said, I would probably bet this is about a 15 to 20 session adventure campaign. You could turn it into way more. If you ignore the Oasis of the White Palm because your group sucks at RP, you can cut about 5 sessions out of that. If you're not really good with managing mazes, you can cut another 5 sessions out of that and end this thing in about 15 play sessions. But you're cutting out a lot of what was written. But you know what? That's not a criticism. I'm not saying shame. Understanding that as a dungeon master, you have to take the content that you find or that you choose to use and convert it to something that will fit your play group. This is a good all-around adventure. It's got puzzles, it's got exploration, it's got combat, it's got roleplay. If your group does not like puzzles, don't waste your time with this, because you're going to take out so much of the fun stuff, so much of what makes this adventure unique that it's just going to be kind of a bland adventure. If your play group is not into puzzles and explorations, avoid the Desert of Desolation. You will not enjoy it. You will turn it into a bland, boring-ass adventure, pulling out all the puzzles, all the tracks, all the trips. So just buyer beware. If your group does not like puzzles, do not play this. If your group does not like roleplay, it's not a big deal. The only thing that is really affected is the Oasis of the White Palm section. And again, you can find the 3 pieces that you need for the party to get there and present that to them without needing the roleplay. If your party enjoys roleplay, Oasis of the White Palm is the primary section for that. It takes the interactions that they've had with all the NPCs factions up to this point and kind of brings it to a head and makes a big showing out of it, a big payoff, if you will, for your role players at the Oasis of the White Palm. Combat, all the combat you could want here. All the combat that your group could want, probably more than you want to. Add, subtract, whatever you want as far as that. So the 3 tenets of D&D, according to Desert of Desolation. Combat is hit. Lots of it. Puzzles and exploration are a requirement of this as written. RP can matter. Is not the most important factor, but can be. So you have all of the tenets here that you choose to explore as a dungeon master and as a player. But how much of what you use is completely up to you. I'm hitting. I'm going way over on this one. So my apologies. This review did go a little bit long, but the Desert of Desolation is one of my favorite module series. It's very well written. The Hickmans, Lauren Tracy Hickman, have done lots of stuff. Dragonlance is considered a legend, and they've committed. This is prior to Dragonlance. The visual aids that come along with the module are great. Your party will have a lot of stuff to play with, have stuff in hand, have art to look at. The linguistic system that the module presents is sufficient. It's not super hard, and I guess to me that's kind of an okay thing. But it's there. It's something that you can have fun with. If your party's into code breaking, if your party's into finding out puzzles and codexes and cryptics and all of that, then yeah, this is a cool thing because you can take this rudimentary language, this rudimentary writing system, and turn it into all kinds of stuff. And after you look at it a few times, if you read it a few minutes, you'll be able to write it. You'll be able to read it without even needing a key. So it's not the end of the world type of a thing. But yeah. Visual aids, lots of visual aids, lots of dungeon, quote-unquote, dungeon adventures, if you will. Most of what it is going in one ruin and out of, going into the ruin, finishing it, walk out the ruin, walk through the desert to the next place and rinse and repeat. There's some very complex puzzles in here. Some very unfair puzzles and traps in here. But, so keep that in mind. Converting for 5th edition, this module is extremely easy. There aren't any unusual creatures. You can pull whatever matching name out of the monster manual to match up. A dervish is a bandit, or a veteran, or a whatever. A purple worm's a purple worm. A mummy's a mummy. A skeleton's a skeleton. A gnoll's a gnoll. Everything translates very well. And in regards to combat rating, you probably need to trim down your numbers from 1E to 5E, numbers being the amount of bad guys. A random encounter might be 1D10 trolls, which means your party is fighting up to 10 trolls. In 1 edition, if 10 trolls rolled up, a 5th level party was expected to run. You weren't supposed to stand there and fight. 10 trolls, you run. Tear your ass, mark this on your map, don't go near here later, and get on with your life. 5th edition, we're stupid. We let our players fight it, and I am guilty as hell as a DM. I will soften some things. I'll reduce some hit points. I'll do stuff to make sure that a fight that they got into that was borderline survivable is survivable. Now, if they walk up and there's 18 trolls around a campfire and they roll up with 3 people, I'm going to let them die because that was their stupidity. Now they're relying on me, the DM, to bail them out because they're just being dumb. And no, I'm going to let them die. Die rolls are something, bad luck is something that we can mitigate. Player stupidity, hit it with a hammer, punish it. Otherwise, you're just encouraging more of it. And a module such as Desert of Desolation will give you a plethora of opportunities to kill your players based on their stupidity. You always got that one guy that wants to jump into a hole. Oh, I'm going to jump, see where it leads. A couple bottomless pits here. Bye. 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 Go roll up a new character. We'll see you next week. Either that or you've completely neutered the entire point of having this module. Okay? Keep that in mind. It's supposed to be lethal. It's supposed to be dangerous. It's supposed to, your players are supposed to pay for bad decisions. So, I mean, you know, keep that in mind. Here we're looking at this thing here, the entry to bottom, the crypt of Badr al-Muzak. I'm looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pits. 4 of them drop to 100 foot of water. The 5th one drops beyond that. I mean, if we're looking at the scale here, oh, Jiminy Criminy, that's a 600 foot drop. That's unsurvivable. And even if they can feather float their way down, they're not coming back up 600 foot unless they have a fly spell that can last for 10 rounds. Think it through. Pay attention to your traps. We've got the light prism traps in here as well. What happens on a light prism? Well, if they cross a beam of light, spears fly out. If the spears hit something, the floor drops out. You've got to be ready to either completely throw those away because your group can't handle puzzles and you can't handle running puzzles, or you've got to be ready to hit them with them because that's the puzzles and the traps are what make these things special, are what give you the Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom 5. This is the Raiders of the Lost Ark. This is the freaking resting place of the Ark of the Covenant, man. Give it some mystery. Give it some scare. Give it make the traps mean something, or ignore them completely. Don't nerf them. You know, don't do yourself the don't wet them down too much because yeah, you train your group to act dumb, be silly, and there's never going to be any repercussions for it. There's never a consequence for it because the DM will just put a pit on the bottom. They'll put a bottom on the bottomless pit and leave a ladder for us to climb back up. Shame, you know. So yeah, I'm actually sitting here at the hour and a half mark. I promised myself I was going to try really hard not to exceed 90 minutes on these reviews. I could talk another hour about this module, getting into far more of the details. More than anything, I just wanted to give you a quick one over it, show you some of the art in it, show you some of what's contained in it, a little bit of some of my custom work as well, just some examples of what you yourselves can do to make it a working modern VTT ready module. Highly recommend it. Highly recommend it. I recommend running it as close to written as possible and use your session 0 to tell your group this is a survival themed dungeon. This isn't or adventure. This is, I mean, call it a one shot. Let them start out their player, you know, pre-roll characters at level 5. I don't care about your backstories. Your backstories don't mean shit because you got teleported here. We're playing this adventure right now, and everything that happens here is what matters. It's hard to get 5th edition people to buy into that because every one of them was born a hero. Every one of them has an uncle who's a rich uncle who is married to a secret drow wizardess who's trying to run away from Lolth. Every one of them has a warlock who's best buddies with Orcus. Every player has got some crazy bullshit in their backstory that they want to bring into the forefront of their current story. That does not work for this adventure. And I think the adventure does a good job by sucking the players out from wherever they were and dropping them in the middle of the Desert of Desolation. You don't understand who I was. You're right. I don't. And I don't care. Because that's a million miles away from here right now. So keep that in mind. Players that care about their backstory mattering right now are not going to like this module. They're not going to feel attached to their character because there's nothing for their backstory to attach to in this adventure. Focus on the survival aspect of it. Focus on making sure that your party is they feel that sand grinding against their skin, man. They feel that rock that's been in their pebble since they slid down that pebble that's been in their boot, and man, your heel is sore. You've been walking for I need to take my shoes off and empty my shit out. Okay, you know, I mean, make the environment matter. That sun beating down. You go to adjust your hood on your and you burn your hand as you touch your armor. The steel is so hot from the sun being beating down. Use the environment, man. Use the factors. Lean into it and prepare your party for it. Otherwise, you're doing the module a disservice. You're doing them a disservice. Bottom line, I3-I5 Desert of Desolation. Great story. Really, really well written. Really well assembled. Lots of visual aids. Lots of items for to put in your party's hand to help them feel engaged and immersed in the world. An emphasis on survival, an emphasis on puzzles, an emphasis on traps with this dungeon. This is an Egyptian-themed tomb robber thing, man. Tomb Raider, Raiders of the Lost Ark, it's all here, part of all of that. So make sure that you're presenting this for a group that enjoys that. They look forward to the challenges. They look forward to the puzzles. They're not the ones that are going to be mad 5 minutes into it because they can't figure out what this rune means. Screw it. Just, I want to roll. I don't care. I want to roll with advantage. I want the roll to tell me to fix this. They're not going to enjoy this module. Steer them away from it. You're not going to enjoy running this module for that as well. So it's, for all of its good, it is really a niche product. It's got to fit the right group at the right time in the right mood. And if you hit all of those, damn, man, you're gonna have an adventure of a lifetime. You're gonna have a module that you remember forever. It will be among your favorites. But like I said, right group, right mentality, right time. But DMGeezerjim here. I'm gonna go ahead and sign off. I've hit beyond my 90-minute mark. That means YouTube's gonna hate me, and most people won't even listen to me talk for that long. So it is what it is. But in the meantime, thank you for joining me. I hope you found this preview review informative. Like the video, like and follow and subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you're catching me on Twitch, you know how it is. You know, D&D business during the day, video game fun at night. Like, follow, same thing there on Twitch. I have products available on Etsy. Also a Patreon going on if you want to help support projects like this and more. I'd love for you to subscribe and be a patron over there. Everything can be found at DMGeezerjim. If you found my YouTube channel, you type that into Facebook, Etsy, Patreon, Twitch, you're going to find me on the same thing. It's all the same tag. But you know what? Whether you've been here for 5 minutes live, whether you've been here for an hour later, I very much appreciate you sharing your time with me. And wish you all the best. Happy gaming, and we'll see you soon.